My guest today is Linda Attram, a powerhouse property investor and developer with over 25 years experience building a multi-million pounds portfolio across the UK, Caribbean, and Ghana. An award-winning entrepreneur, author, international speaker, and a mentor at Westminster University. Linda is passionate about empowering the next generation of property professionals. She has also been recognized as the Global Women Club Regional Director of the Year in 2023 and Inspirational Mother of the Year in 2023. Linda is a proud wife of 25 years and a mother of 3. I'll just get Linda to introduce herself to us.
Thank you so much, Faith. Thank you for having me on your platform. It's an absolute honour to be here today. I'm really looking forward to the conversation and sharing my story with your audience to hopefully inspire them in some way, shape or form.
Thank you. So before we get really into the questions, I just wanted to ask you, before property became a part of your life, what was your season like in terms of professionally and personal?
Okay, great. So thank you for that question. So prior to property, I had an 18-year career in human resources. So I trained in HR, and my last role in HR was as an equality and diversity manager working for Brunel University. So in my latter years, that's when I started working in property as a sideline, creating the business as a sideline, whilst I worked at Brunel at the same time.
Right. So early years experience, what do you think actually shaped your mindset before you went into property?
Yeah, so great question. My mindset at that time when I first went into property was not anything like it was now. I didn't like to take risks whatsoever. It was my husband who first said to me, why don't we start a property business? Well, actually, he didn't even say a property business. He said, let's, buy some properties. So the way that the journey actually started was that I had my own flat in Neasden. He had a house, a 3-bed house in Croydon, and we wanted to live together. So he said, why don't you take equity out of your flat and he'll take equity out of his house, and then we'll use that equity to put a deposit on a house for ourselves. And that just sounded like gobbledygook to me. It just went way over my head. I'm like, what is this equity? I just don't understand what you're talking about. So it took quite a few conversations before I understood, and we went forward in terms of that process to start on our journey of having our own home together. But then what we did was we actually rented out our individual homes that we had ourselves, and that's when I got to find out about that beautiful thing called cash flow. And so for me it was like that was a game changer for me. And we then, after we did that on our own individual homes, we then repeated the process, and that's how the journey began.
So did you actually did you speak to anyone about it? Because those days there isn't a platform like there is a platform now. Everybody's talking about properties. So did you discuss it with your friends, or was it just both of you at the time just saying, no, let's try this out?
No, we intentionally didn't discuss it with friends because we knew we were doing something different to the circle of people that we were around at the time. And basically he was the one that, suggested we could go through this process, because at the time he was very entrepreneurial minded, and he still is. But I wasn't at that time. And his father was a mortgage broker. So that helped. So we spoke to his father, who's my father-in-law, and he helped me to understand even better how that process works. And then I started reading books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I started to understand about wealth creation. But when we did our first couple of properties, maybe our first 3 properties, we had no education at that time. We were just, doing it, just going along with it and figuring it out as we went along. And then we realized that we could quite quickly scale the business, because at that time it was a lot easier to scale with the business than it is now, using the buy-to-let strategy. So we then went and got education, property education, and found out about more strategies. And then we were able to expand the portfolio using those different strategies.
Okay, amazing, amazing. So during that time when you were going into your property journey and building your property portfolio, how did you find it in terms of, obviously you guys knew you were going to also start a family. So how did you incorporate that into your decision earlier on?
Yeah. So, well, it was the business grew organically. So it wasn't like we sat down and we said, okay, this is our 25-year plan. We're going to get X amount of properties and then we're going to have 2.5 children in the middle of it. No, we started it off before the children came along. But when when I started having our family, that's when the business started to grow. So it was a case of, we got the bug. We loved property. We knew that it would be, great assets to create generational wealth for our upcoming family. So that was our focus. How do we continue building this? We've got the knowledge, we've got the experience. Let's keep doing this. But for me personally, as a mum, during those times, it was quite challenging for me because I knew what the end goal looked like, but it was the doing part and the time that I felt that I should have been mum and doing all the mum things with the kids, but I wasn't, because I was too busy focusing on building the business. So for example, if I put that into context, like we would buy properties, and in the early days we couldn't afford cleaners, so we would go and clean and decorate the properties ourselves. So we're very family orientated. We don't, when our kids were young, they didn't really go out to other people's, they'd go and visit, but they wouldn't sort of like go and stay overnight or anything like that. They'd always be with us. So we would bring them with us on the journey. So if we had to go and clean a property, decorate it, whatever, they'd be on a mat on the floor. There was a time when my eldest daughter, she's 24 now. At the time, she was about 6 or 7, and she'd be sitting on the floor with her younger brother and sister. She'd be mum, keeping them entertained with the toys, and they couldn't move from that mat because the place was filthy. Mm-hmm. And then I would get, I'd get these pangs of mum guilt, thinking, what are my kids doing sitting on this floor in a rug with my 6-year-old being the mum, and I'm here like decorating this flat. And so for many years that was quite challenging for me. But then as the business grew and as the children got older and could understand, we'd start getting them involved in little bits, whether it be filing and or making phone calls or doing whatever, just so that they were involved in the business. Yeah. And I remember one day I said to them, I sat them down and I said, I really did feel guilty during those days when you guys used to come and sit on the floor and, mummy and dad would be decorating or cleaning the flats. And I was so totally shocked by their response. They said, we actually loved it. We loved going to these different properties every weekend. It was really good fun. And we're like, oh, okay. And, and I think that's often what a lot of, mums, they go through this mum guilt because what they're feeling internally, but are not confident enough or don't feel that it's appropriate to have that conversation with their own children. So that for me was a big learning lesson that, if you talk to your children about what you're doing, why you're doing it, 9 times out of 10, they'll understand. And then you'll get that feedback or that reassurance that it's actually okay because they understand. But if you don't talk to them and don't tell them what you're doing and why you're doing it, then that's when it can become more challenging. So that was a big learning lesson for me.
Amazing, amazing. So when you were going through the journey back then, what skills or habits did you develop, during that process?
in property, in
Yes,
property.
property,
Yeah.
yes.
So I felt that, you know, as a woman anyway, you wear many hats. As a mother, you wear a thousand, a thousand hats. And going into property as a woman, I felt that I had to, at times, change my energy. So rather than being the lovely, sweet, feminine energy, depending on who I was dealing with, if it was, you know, contractors or if it was tenants or, you know, or whoever, you have to switch your energy because you have to be in that leadership role. Not saying that women are not leaders, they are, but you just can't stay stagnant all of the time. You have to switch your energy based on the situation that is presented to you. You could be talking to solicitors about a conveyancing matter. You could be talking to a tenant about not paying their rent. So my mindset, in answer to your question, wasn't a particular thing at that time. It was a continual cycle of growth, depending on what situation I was in. But what I did learn very quickly was not to have a closed mindset and to be open. And because I was dealing with other people, I was dealing with other people's emotions, I often had to think not just about me as a leader in terms of what I want and what my expectations are, but also to try to feel what they're feeling and what would I want to hear you know, if I was in their shoes.
I'm sure HR, working in HR also helps you with that.
Oh, 100%, 100%. Because, and if I give you a bit of my backstory, so I was very shy as a child, and I wouldn't smile at anyone. I had very gappy teeth, and they were going in all sorts of directions, and that affected my confidence quite a bit. But I always wanted to get out of that, and I didn't know how to. And I thought, okay, well, I'm either going to have a career in HR or as a recruitment consultant. And then when I sort of researched it, I realized you have to be really good at sales to be a recruitment consultant. So I thought, no, I'm not going to do that. So I decided HR, but at the time it was called personnel.
Personnel, yes.
Yeah. So that's where I started there in a sort of like a secretarial role. And then my boss at the time saw something in me that I didn't. And so she encouraged me to get involved in bigger tasks than I thought I was able to cope with. They sponsored me for various human resources certificates and also my degree. And so that's how I built up that skill base and that knowledge of how to deal with human beings. So yeah, my HR experience was great because like my last role was in equality and diversity. So I was dealing with people that were you know, being bullied, felt that they'd been discriminated against, whether it be their race, disability, whatever. So I had to do a lot of negotiation.
Yeah. Just going back on that, before HR, what did you do before that? What were you like in school, your early years?
Oh, okay. So what I was like before HR, because HR was my first job, like I said, I was very, very shy in junior school. When I went up to high school, I realized that, well, I felt that I was different because everyone around me was very loud. Everyone around me was very confident. And I wanted to be like that, but I didn't know how. So I made some poor choices at school. I started hanging around with people that weren't necessarily a great influence for me. And it basically affected my education. So I left school with no English or no maths. They were called CSCs at the time. And that's how old I am. So yeah, I didn't have any of that education. But then when I left school, I realized this is not going to get me very far. So I went back. I went to secretarial college during the day, but then in the evening, I went back and took my English and maths qualifications. So that's what I was like before school, before HR.
Yeah, no, amazing. So were you doing the Pitman and RSA and all that?
RSA, yeah, the whole copy typing, however many words a minute using the carbon paper.
Yeah. 60 words a minute, if I remember.
The what,
60
sorry?
words, 60 words a minute.
Yeah, something like that. And then, the carbon copy paper, and then we upgraded to word processing, and yeah,
And was that an Amstrad computer?
quite possibly, or Hewlett Packard
Packard,
or
yeah.
something. Yeah, I can't remember, but it was so old, so way back.
So looking at your bio, basically you've got properties in the UK, in the Caribbean, and in Ghana. What made you diversify to, the global expansion? If you just give us a little bit of background about that.
Yeah, so for me, it's really about well, for me and my husband, we set goals each year, and each year we set goals that are bigger than what we've achieved before. And because my husband is from Ghana and I'm from Grenada, it just felt natural to invest in our own countries. So we have land and a development going on in Ghana that my husband, because it's easier for him to manage that because he knows the language, etc. And then I have properties that I rent out in Grenada as well. So yeah, I mean, outside of the countries where we're actually from, we've not invested elsewhere. We've dabbled. We did another country before, and that didn't work out very well. But one of the key things when we were creating our portfolio was because the kids were small, everything that we purchased needed to be within 30 minutes of where we lived,
Okay.
purely because in the early days we were managing them, and we still do. When I say we, I still manage them, but with a team. But they're all in a specific area that's not too far away, and that strategy worked out for us. I mean, we don't, some people go to Wales, Manchester, wherever, but and there's nothing wrong with that. We've never been that interested to go that far, and I think that was purely because in the early stages we were bringing up a family. It wouldn't have been practical to do that, but never say never. There's still time now if we wanted to go elsewhere.
Yeah. And in terms of, I mean, I don't want to, so in terms of your properties, where do you, I don't want to say which country do you prefer, but how do you actually manage those? Because, like, for example, Ghana is quite far from the UK and the Caribbeans as well. So how do you stay in touch and be aware of everything happening in those
Yeah,
areas?
so in Ghana, my husband has his own contacts out there, people that he has his own power team out there, people that will report back on various things. He travels there quite often as well. And we were there just at Christmas as well. Likewise in Grenada, I tend to go out there once a year, but for me, it's all about relationships. Yeah, whether that be a relationship with a plumber, a relationship with my tenant, it's about treating people with respect so that whenever you need to call on them, it's not going to be a big issue.
Yeah,
So that's the biggest thing for me, and that's whether that's in the UK or in the Caribbean as well.
amazing. So I also read that you are a black belt. Is it?
In
How do you
Taekwondo.
in Taekwondo? Yes. How do you juggle all this and still manage a big empire like this?
Thank you for that question. So I practiced the art of Taekwondo for 8 years, and I became a second degree black belt. And then we had a large development project that we finished in 2024. So I took a two year break from Taekwondo because you know yourself, when sometimes when you've got lots on, some things have to give. And then to go back into Taekwondo after such a long break was quite challenging for me. So I've still got my second degree black belt, but I don't practice Taekwondo anymore. But what I have started doing is kickboxing, which I absolutely love. It's an all ladies class, and so we can train up to 4 times a week on that. So when I'm in the country, when I'm not got 1,000 things going on, then I do regularly train. Yeah, I train at least twice a week, But when I can get in there 4 times, I'm definitely there. I absolutely love, I love sport in that sense. And I think it's really important, especially when you're in business, to have an outlet. There's no point working really hard and not, not putting any effort into your health or into your well-being. So for me, that's my outlet.
Amazing. And also, being an award-winning entrepreneur obviously comes after a lot of unseen work and sacrifices and commitments that requires. So, how do you actually juggle all those? Because there are
Well,
lots of things you do behind the scene that people don't see. They just see that you're a successful person.
yeah, I like to feel that I'm a very organized person, organized in business and also organized at home. So I like to write everything down, and I know in my head what my limit is. So if I've got a blank piece of paper and I write 15 things on it, I know I'm not going to achieve that in a day.
Yeah.
But if I put 4 things down or 3 things down and I allow some white space, because in property anything can happen at any point in time,
Mhm.
for me that's a win. I'd rather achieve 3 great things than to do a bit of everything from out of my list of 15. So for me, it's about being organized and making sure that I make time for me, which is not easy,
Yeah.
being a mum, but even just doing my nails is time for me. That's a big tick in my book. Making time for my relationships as well with my husband is important. And like my kids are all grown now. My youngest is 18, my eldest is 24. And I know a lot of people, when it gets to that stage, and like my youngest two are off at university now, so they don't live at home, they turn around and they look at their partner and like, well, who are you? I've not seen you for the last 18 years. And they actually don't like each other because they haven't invested that time in, keeping that momentum going in their relationship. So for us, it's very important to do that regularly, all of the time, checking on each other, be present with each other, but also be present for the children as well.
Amazing. I mean, that was one of the things I was going to ask you, but you've already answered it because I noticed in your bio and other things that I've read and looking at your Instagram, you're very, very family orientated, and those things are important, very important to you. And
Yeah.
I like the way you've actually said that you've involved your family, your children in your business right from the beginning.
Mm.
Yeah, so that's absolutely great.
And the other thing, thank you. The other thing is that yeah, we have involved the children. It's a family business in terms of we're creating it for legacy purposes, but it's not. We're not forcing our children to be in that space. They will benefit from that long after we're no longer around. But they have their own free mind, free will to choose whatever career path they want, but they would have property there as their legacy. Yeah.
So earlier on, I mentioned Global Women Award that you got. What is Global Women Organization? If you don't mind explaining what it is.
Sure. Yeah. So Global Woman Club is a networking organization that was created by the founder, Morella Sula. So I initially joined the club as a member because I wanted to network with women, with business women. And so after a period of time, I wanted to contribute more, and I became a director, which meant that I had my own community of women that I would look after. I'd have meetings with them on a monthly basis, and we'd be involved in the whole sort of global community because there are communities all over the world. So different pockets of women, whether that be in LA, Paris, around the world. And so I loved that community, and I just wanted to be more involved. So I became a regional director. So I was the director for, I think, about 3 years. And then I left that role in December 2020. 2024, I think. December 2024, but I'm still very much involved with them. So when they have their annual summits or when they have their awards night at the Houses of Parliament, I'm one of the co-hosts. So I'm still very much connected with them. I'm still a member, but just not a director. Like I said, when I had that building project, it just overtook my life. And that was another thing that had to go. I had to be very careful with my time.
Yeah. And how important is it to network in the type of work you're doing or in any work, for those people that are listening or the next generation that are listening to this conversation? How
Yeah,
important is it?
it's very, very important because, no man is an island. You can't be successful on your own, working in your dining room, your office, or whatever by yourself. You learn so much through networking. You get the opportunity to collaborate with other people so you can help your business to expand. You get to share your knowledge, you get to share your expertise. And particularly in property, you also find investors, people that may have cash that they don't know what to do with. They want a better return from the bank and they'd like to invest with you, but they need to obviously know, like, and trust you. And they're not going to be able to do that just by an Instagram post or a LinkedIn post saying, oh, would you like to invest with me? It's about building those relationships. And the way that you build that is initially by networking in the right circles so that you can attract the right type of people to help your business grow.
Amazing. And also, it's mentioned that you mentor people. Is it at Westminster University?
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
And how important is it for us to, or how is it important for people to have mentors in careers? Because some people have done it. They said we've got books now, but how important is it to actually have someone like a one-to-one to mentor them?
I think it's incredibly important and it's invaluable. And the reason why I do that with Westminster University is because I didn't have that. And I've got so much knowledge, a wealth of experience. And so rather than just keeping it all for myself, why not help the younger generation? So, often we have things to do, but we might not know which direction to turn to. And having that mentor, having that sounding board just makes that path a little bit easier for them, but also gives them, well, for the people that I mentor, that gives them that real life experience. So you've got your theoretical side that you learn at university, but then how do you, in practice, put that in place? And where you've asked me questions about mindset and how I coach in certain situations, no university course is going to cover that. So it's about having that life experience, and mentorship is not just for the young, it's for anyone at any age. And there may be somebody that you see, how can I put this? You may see them on social media. Like, some people see me and they're like, "Oh, you're my mentor," and I'm like, "Oh, am I?" We don't actually have formal meetings or anything like that, but they just follow what I do. Not follow physically, but they follow my page or whatever, and they get inspired by it. So in their head, they think that I'm mentoring them, which is fine. But I think that particularly in our community, it's very important to seek out role models.
Yes.
So that you have that goal to aspire to, because in those days when it gets very tough and very challenging and you feel like giving up, but you hear or you see somebody else who has gone through what you've gone through, maybe even worse than what you've done or similar, and they've managed to keep going, that then inspires others to do the same. And that's what I do. That's what I love doing for the young people, but also for women particularly. Yeah, because I mean, I don't know if this might be one of your questions, but outside of property, I'm also starting a new project as well, helping women.
Amazing. Do you want to enlighten us, or is it still
Yeah,
under?
sure. It's about the different seasons that we as women have to go through. and women often don't see them as seasons. So you might be in a rebirth season, you might be in a season of change, or a challenging season. But as women, we tend to just get on with things. We don't have time to think about it as a season, or this is something that I'm supposed to go through. So I've identified a process through a 4-step formula where I help women to identify what season they're in, what to expect in that season, but also what the next season might look like and how they can navigate around that. But rather than feeling that they're behind because they're so overwhelmed with everything that they're having to do, that they actually feel like they're becoming this person in this season, and giving them the tools so that they can flourish with confidence, power, and grace in any season. So that's something that I'm currently working on in the background at the moment, and it will be launched later on this year. So I'm just doing all of the back end stuff at the moment.
Amazing. Please, can I come?
Yes, definitely. Definitely. And I tell you what's going to happen is there's going to be a series of social media posts. So, for anyone listening, they can just follow me on LinkedIn or Instagram, but more LinkedIn. And there will be like a quiz. It will start off with a quiz that you can take in your own time, leads to a discovery session. Then we're going to have masterclasses and a retreat at some point later down the line.
Oh,
so really, really exciting stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds amazing already, and I can't wait to come to it when it happens.
Thank you.
So one of the things I was actually going to ask is, in terms of how would you describe your journey now in the current season of growth and recognition?
Wow, that's a very interesting question. How would I describe my current season? I would describe my current season as a rebirth season. So I've just gone through. I'm coming out of I'm still in actually the empty nester season, and that for me was quite challenging because it just when my son, who's my last born, left to go to university, I was an emotional wreck. I just could not. I didn't prepare myself. I thought I was prepared until like 2 weeks before, and I just couldn't stop sobbing and crying. And so for me, I had to think about what is it I'm going to do with all this time, because I'm used to running around every single evening, taking him to this class, that class, whatever, and I've got all this time now. What am I going to do? And so I then, recreated myself in terms of my fitness by doing the kickboxing. I've recently changed my hair, and I've had my braids for so long, and that was a real significant change for me to go from my braids to this, because I've had my braids for probably 10 years or more. And so I'm also creating this Seasons for You program. And so it's about this evolving change for me. I'm in my mid 50s. I've more likely got more years behind me than I have in front of me. And it's about making sure that all of my knowledge and skills don't die with me, and helping as many women as I possibly can to live a fulfilled life. Because I've been very blessed, with my marriage, my children, my businesses. And I'm not, saying, oh, it's all been easy. No, I've had challenges, but I've been blessed, very, very blessed. And I would love to help as many women as I can to also live a fulfilled life as well.
Amazing. And how would you say you stay grounded and, focus in managing all this and your family as well? How do you feel you cope with that?
Thank you. So I'm fortunate to have I had great parents. They're both passed away now. And so, there were certain values that were instilled in me from childhood. But myself and my husband, we have our own values that we instill into our children. I do a lot of meditation, manifestation as well. And God is always at the center of everything. So that gives me that peace, that energy, that place to go to when things are challenging for me, and that helps me to stay grounded.
Amazing. And if anyone was actually watching, or listening to the podcast and they feel a bit stuck and they don't know what to do next, what type of advice would you give that person? In
Wow.
terms of if they wanted to go into property, what type of advice would you give them if they were thinking about doing it or they're feeling stuck, they can't make up their minds because, things are quite different now in terms of going into property in the UK?
Yeah, I would say to them, definitely get education first. Don't do it the way that I did it, just buy a property, because it's very different now. It was a lot easier back then. So I would say get education first. Ensure that you've got some funds available. And I know obviously now it's a lot more creative. You don't need to have this big deposit to get into property. You can do like rent to rents, or you can, be sourcing or whatever, but just have some funds aside so that you can invest into your business. Once you've got that education, get yourself a mentor, because having the education is one thing, but like I said earlier, it's about that real life experience. So get somebody to hold your hand when you're going forward with your first deal. But also very important is know why you're doing it. If you think that property is going to be this get rich quick scheme, it's not. So it's the wrong thing. You need to go and choose something completely different. If you're in it for the long term, it's a great strategy. Short term, in this current market, it's not really the strategy. Property is not really the thing. It's more of a long term investment. So I would say get the education and get a mentor.
Amazing. And we're coming towards the end of our questions, but I wanted to ask you, what are the 3 core values that you live by?
Thank you. Great question. So, there are many. So if I had to pick 3, I would say trust is a big one for me. Respect as well. And trust, value, and honesty. Yeah. And they're things that I would expect people to do towards me, but also what I would precipitate and give to others as well.
Thank you. And if anyone was to find you or follow you, where would you like them to find you?
They can follow me on all of the social media platforms. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. But my preference would be LinkedIn.
Okay.
And it's under my name, Linda Attram, Attram, M for mother.
Okay. All that will be included once we put out the podcast. Do you have any last parting words for our audience?
Well, my parting words, thank you for that question. It would be to, one of my, if you were to ask me the question, what's your biggest regret? And I would say that, when I was younger, I used to think or waste far too much time wondering about what other people thought about me. And I had a lot of wasted years, and I could have progressed a lot further if I hadn't thought about what other people thought about me. And I know that's a big thing now, particularly, for the younger community, with all of these different constraints, especially with, social media and having to look a certain way and be a certain way. But just be true to yourself, know what you want, think about what you want. If you don't know, get some help, get some guidance. But once you know what you want, just be focused on that. Just be relentless in terms of in a nice way, be relentless about what you want to achieve in your life, because we're not guaranteed tomorrow. We don't know how long we're going to be here. So don't waste time about other people, because once you achieve what you want, those people, those naysayers that are around you, they'll be the ones knocking on your door wanting to be around you. So just do you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome.